So we're back with the PFL, and I really do enjoy the PFL. I mean, I like the season format, and now that we're later in the season, it is the final, well, for these, two weight classes, of course, I'm talking about 155 and 205. It is the final regular season fight for the lightweights and the light heavyweights, and it is headlined by Clay Collier taking on Alex Martinez. We'll talk a little bit about the points, the standings, and all of that as we predict these 10 fights here for PFL week number 4. And folks, if you haven't yet, make sure that subscribe button down below. We're going to be doing the entire PFL season, so we're going to be doing the 6 weeks after this or 5 weeks after this. And also go make sure to check out our UFC preview and predictions. We posted our UFC Austin predictions last night with Calvin Kattar and Josh Shenman in the main event, so go check that video out. Link is in the description as well. So to my knowledge, and the PFL is kind of tricky with the replacement fighters for the season format and whatnot, because you fight like 6 weeks apart and some guys might not be ready for the next fight. But I'm pretty sure, I'm like 95% sure this is not a season fight, because you got 4 lightweight fights on this card, and then you got Showtime Pettis taking on Stevie Ray next week in the PFL's 5th regular season episode. So this is just just a bonus fight here. I'm going to talk about it very briefly. Bruno Miranda taking on Nate Jennerman. For Bruno Miranda, he's coming off a knockout finish win on the Challenger Series, picking up that win by knockout in the 3rd round. He's taking on Nate Jennerman in this. Jennerman's 15-5, getting his first shot in the PFL. He's from LFA. He's fought a couple times in there. He made an LFA show back in 2019, losing in the main event by KO in the first round, but he's come back since then. He took a 2-year hiatus, came back, won back-to-back fights in NAFC. I'm going to take Miranda, though. Miranda's the favorite going into this one. I think he's a better fighter. I think he's got better hands. I think he's going to come in there. I think he'll probably knock out Jennerman in the first, proving a point, trying to get into next season's PFL lightweight season. Okay, so again, PFL gets confusing, but Corey Hendricks is not fighting. Instead, it is Josh Silveira. So Hendricks picked up a 2nd-round knockout win over Emiliano Sordi, so that's what's given him 5 points right now in the light heavyweight standings. He's not fighting. Josh Silveira's in the spot instead of him. And for Josh Silveira, he won in the Challenger Series, picking up a submission win in the 3rd round on their first ever episode of the Challenger Series. And for Silveira, this is a guy who's main evented 3 different shows over there with LFA, picking up 3 straight wins in there. 1 by rear naked choke in the first round, the 2nd by head kick knockout for the LFA lightweight championship. Then he went down and he got the middleweight championship by unanimous decision. So Silveira's a guy who's a champ over there with LFA. He's taking on Martin Hamlet in this one. For Hamlet, he does have his victory. He did get a victory in his first PFL fight against Doris. He won that one by unanimous decision. Obviously, Hamlet's a guy who did go to the PFL championship fight last year, losing to Antonio Carlos Jr., of course, the favorite last year and definitely the favorite this year to win the entire thing over at light heavyweight. Antonio Carlos Jr. submits him in the first round in their fight back then. I mean, Hamlet beat Cesar Ferreira when Ferreira had that weird hamstring injury where he just got into the fight and just kind of sat down after 10 seconds. Was that weird finish over there back in 2021. So Hamlet and Silveira here, though. I mean, I know Antonio Carlos Jr. is really good on the ground, but you got a guy also in Corey Hendricks that submitted Hamlet too. Josh Silveira is a dominant force in the ground. This is the guy who's one of the the top prospects coming in from LFA. The PFL got to him before a Bellator or the UFC could get to Josh Silveira, before Josh Silveira could get on the Contender Series or something like that. So I really like Silveira in this one. I think he's going to make an immediate impact. I think he'll submit Martin Hamlin in the 2nd. Will that be enough to get him in the playoffs? I just don't know. I mean, depending here on the tiebreakers, I'm not completely sure on the tiebreakers for the PFL. I don't know if he'd get in. We all keep track of what I think is going to happen, so we're going to give 5 points to Silveira, picking up the win by 2nd-round submission. So now we got Rob Wilkinson taking on Victor Pesta. Pesta has 0 points right now as he got knocked out by Akhmedov in his first fight. Akhmedov hit with a really clean overhand right. And for Rob Wilkinson, he KO'd Bruce Souto in the 2nd round, and that's why he has 5 points. So for Wilkinson, if he picks up a victory, he will if he wins this fight in any fashion, he'll be in the playoffs. And I think he's going to. I got Wilkinson by 1st-round knockout on this one. I'm not overly impressed with Pesta. I mean, this is a guy who used to fight in the UFC. I mean, he went, 1-4 over there, beat a guy who no one's ever heard of, lost to Magomedov, lost to Derek Lewis, lost to Marcin Tybura, lost to Alexei Oleinik, which are all good guys, don't get me wrong. But since then, he fought an octagon. Yeah, he picked up 3 straight wins to get his shot here in the PFL, but Akhmedov set him down pretty quickly, and Pesta was the favorite in that one. And I even picked Pesta to win that fight by 1st-round knockout because I wasn't overly impressed of what we were getting out of Omar Akhmedov before that fight against Pesta. But I think Rob Wilkinson's better. Wilkinson's got more power. I think he's going to find a way to put down Pesta early in this fight. I think he's going to secure 6 points, guarantee his spot now in the 2nd round, or in the playoffs, with the PFL putting him at 11 points. And yeah, so we're going to go with Rob Wilkinson to win by 1st-round knockout. So you kind of know who the PFL thinks is the worst guy out the 10-man bracket, or I guess 11 now with the light heavyweights. when they booked the champion against whoever like he fought in his first fight. So Antonio Carlos Jr. Like I think Shoeface could beat every single one of these guys in this bracket. I think Josh Silveira would give him an interesting stylistic matchup, but I think he clears most of these guys. Akhmedov would be interesting, but I think Carlos Jr. probably beats all these guys. They put him up against Delon Monte first because they knew Antonio Carlos Jr. could beat this dude in a hurry, and he did. He subbed him with a Darce in 30 seconds. Monte's probably the worst guy they have in this, let's be honest with ourselves, and he's taken on Emiliano Sordi, the former light heavyweight champion of 2019 in the PFL. Now, 2021 didn't go his way. He ran into Antonio Carlos Jr. in the first round of the playoffs, and he lost. And in his first fight in the 2022 season, he lost to Corey Hendricks. Hendricks getting the TKO finish in the second round. I don't think Sordi's going to have too many problems in this fight with him and Monte. I mean, Sordi's just better. I think he's gonna come out for a finish here, obviously, because Sordi needs a finish to get in the playoffs. I mean, again, even if he gets the finish here, he might not even make the playoffs. I'm going to say second round finish here, second round TKO, win for Emiliano Sordi. Again, he's just better than Monte. Monte's not really great on the feet. He's not great on the ground either. He's just, again, I think he's the 11th guy in the light heavyweight division for the PFL. So I'm going to be going with Emiliano Sordi to pick up 5 points. Now, as we have it right now, that put him in a tie with both Corey Hendricks and Josh Silveira for that 4th playoff spot. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, we're going to give 5 points to Emiliano Sordi. I think he'll find a way to put down Delon Monte and knock him out in the second. So I'm pretty sure I got this right. Don Madge isn't fighting. It's Marcin Held now instead. So Held is going to be taking the place of Don Madge now in the second fight in the season. So he's going to be taking on Natan Schulte. For Schulte, he lost his first fight by split decision. It's a razor-thin decision that he did lose to Olivier Aubin-Mercier. So Mercier got the 3 points instead of Schulte. But when Natan Schulte brings to the table, obviously he's got a really good ground game. He's always trying to drag fights to the mat, but that's what Marcin Held's going to bring as well. Now, Held didn't get the original call to the 2022 season. He went 1-1, and this is a rematch of their first fight back in 2021. It's the first week in 2021 that Marcin Held beat Natan Schulte by unanimous decision. I mean, what's to say this fight's going to be any different, really? I mean, Held had a rough go in the UFC, starts off his run 3 straight losses, but then he goes and he beats Nasrat Haqparast, and then they cut him after he beat Haqparast, so he came in, won a couple fights in ACA, and then got the shot in the PFL, beating Schulte and then losing to Aubin-Mercier in his second fight. The guy's good. I mean, Marcin Held, he fought Michael Chandler back in 2011 as well, but he lost that fight, but it's all right. But Marcin Held's got a really good ground game, and like we saw in the first fight, Held got the better of the fight on the ground. I think Held's going to do it again. I mean, I think, again, it's only a year difference in this one. I don't think Natan Schulte's, to that point where he's going to be better than Held than, I don't think this fight's going to be any different than the first fight. I think Marcin Held's going to win again. I'm going to go with him winning this one by unanimous decision. Now, it likely won't put him in the playoffs, considering we've already got Aubin-Mercier with 3 points. We got Alexander Martinez with 3 points. We got Clay Colley with 3 points. We'll see, and we're going to keep track. But with only one fight, it is tough for Held to get in the playoffs. I'm going to say he wins this one by decision. I think the grappling is going to kind of cancel him out with both these guys. I think he'll still win the fight, but I don't think he's going to be able to get a finish. Going Marcin Held by decision. So I think this is a pretty obvious one. At least I think so. I mean, okay, I don't feel confident in Akhmedov anymore. I really haven't in a while since he lost to Jordan Young. But, I mean, he beat Victor Pesta in his last fight. Pesta's not great, but he knocked him out in the first round. He's taken on it to Doris Aukstuolis in this. Aukstuolis isn't very good. I mean, this is a guy who's traded wins and losses for the longest time. When he was fighting in Rise, and he traded wins and losses. Lost to King Mo back in 2015. He beat Bruno Capelloza, which is a good win now, looking back on it back in 2015. But it's been a while. Todorus isn't great at this point of his career. Hamlet was able to handle him. I think Akhmedov would be able to handle him as well. I think Akhmedov has got this one on the feet, on the ground. I like Akhmedov too. I'm not going to bank on a finish here for Akhmedov just because I think he's going to fight this fight pretty safe because he doesn't really have to hunt for a finish because all Akhmedov's going to have to do, and he's going to be later on in this card. Honestly, Akhmedov's probably going to get in win. Even if he loses this fight, I think he'll probably get in the way. I have these points coming out because of the first round knockout that he did get in his first fight. And considering, the guys coming in, you got Hamlet fighting Silveira, especially if Silveira wins, and it takes away Hamlet's ability to get any points to catch up to Akhmedov. And the only way Silveira can catch up to Akhmedov is by a first round submission. And considering Corey Hendricks is not fighting his second fight, I think Akhmedov pretty much should be able to get in no matter what. I still think he'll win the fighting. The wrestling is going to be enough for him to beat Todorus in this one. Of course, Aukstuolis with the judo background still. I think Akhmedov will be able to piece him up a little bit on the feet, and eventually, if he needs to, get this one back on the ground. That's why I like Omari Akhmedov to fight a safe fight in this one. I think he'll win it by decision because, again, he does not need the finish at all. He's going to pick up 9 points, advance to the playoffs, and he'll pretty much, I think, lock him in. Yeah, I think he'll lock him into the 3 seed, going Omari Akhmedov by decision. So Jeremy Stephens is over the hill. Let's be honest with ourselves. He's 36 years old. He hasn't won a fight in what? I mean, a lot of fights. It's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's lost his last 6 fights. One of them was a no contest to Yair Rodriguez. His last win is against the guy who's in the main event of the UFC card this Saturday, when he brutally knocked out Josh Emmett in the main event back in February of 2018. That was his last win. Now, Jeremy Stephens is put in the spot though against Myles Price, where he's in a very good he has a very good opportunity to make the playoffs right now. Because if Jeremy Stephens, which I'm saying he's going to get a first round knockout, because I think Stephens knows this, I think his corner knows this, I think we all know this. Jeremy Stephens needs a finish to make the playoffs, and this is the way I've calculated this out, and this is where the PFL gets interesting, and this is what I do kind of like about the PFL, it's stuff like this, right? So, looking at the standings, Anthony Pettis is basically a shoe-in to already get in. I think Pettis is going to get in, considering he's fighting Stevie Ray. He'll likely win that fight anyway, but Pettis, with his first round submission win over Stephens' opponent in Myles Price in his first fight of the regular season, Pettis will likely be in the playoffs no matter what, the 6 points. Okay, Manfio and Aubin-Mercier are fighting each other, so one of those two can't pick up any points. Manfio's at 4, Aubin-Mercier is at 3, okay? And then Clay Colliard and Alexander Martinez are fighting each other. Both those guys, one of those guys can't get points either, so one of them's going to be stuck at 3, the other one is going to pick up more points. But no matter what, there's going to be a 4th playoff spot open, because Marcin Held and Natan Schulte, we're saying is going to go to decision, right? Stevie Ray, we're thinking probably doesn't get points against Anthony Pettis, because Pettis probably beats him, so Pettis stays at top. Manfio, only one Manfio and Aubin-Mercier can stay at top, and then Collier and Martinez, only one of them can stay at top too. So it leaves open a 4th playoff spot, and as long as Jeremy Stephens gets a first round knockout, which I'm thinking he's going to do, I think he's going to come in here, I think he's going to blitz Myles Price, and he's going to go for an early stoppage. If he gets a first or second round stoppage in this fight, he is basically in the playoffs no matter what. I do think as long as Pettis goes and does what he needs to do against Stevie Ray, and as long as he gets a finish quicker than potentially Marcin Held and Natan Schulte go do, which those guys don't really get finishes often either. So I think Stephens is going to go out there. The PFL has put him in a great spot, in a tremendous position to go out here and make the playoffs. I think he's going to come in there. I think he's going to blitz Myles Price quickly. I think he's going to find a way to touch the chin. I'm going with a very aggressive Jeremy Stephens. I hope he knows this. A very aggressive Jeremy Stephens to go in there, knock out Myles Price in the first round, get him 6 points in the standings. I'll likely put him in the playoffs. Jeremy Stephens with the victory. So it's crazy to me that one of these two guys are probably not going to be in the playoffs, and a Jeremy Stephens at 36 years old, thanks to his matchmaking against Myles Price, will likely be in the playoffs instead. But you're looking at Manfio and Olivier Aubin-Mercier. Now, maybe Manfio could still get in with the loss, but for Aubin-Mercier, he needs to win this fight. He has to pick up a victory in this one. And yes, he did get that win over Natan Schulte by split decision in the first week of the PFL season this year. And for Manfio, of course, picking up that huge and brutal knockout of Don Madge in the 3rd round. That was a crazy fight in the first week as well. But Manfio comes in there, he picks up the big knockout win at the end, or in the middle of the 3rd round against Don Madge. Of course, Manfio is the reigning champion here at the PFL at lightweight. Came out of nowhere to win that season. He hadn't fought in 3 years, comes in, wins 3 straight fights, picks up a win over Anthony Pettis, beats Clay Colliard in the playoffs, which, did he really win that fight? I don't know. Did he really beat Anthony Pettis? Oh, I don't know either. He did beat Jaguar Paw, though, in the finals, winning that one by unanimous decision, picking up the championship in the process. And now Manfio taking on Olivier Aubin-Mercier. Obviously, for Manfio, he's going to try to keep his striking in this one, going to try to keep it on the feet. And for Olivier Aubin-Mercier, he's going to try to be the one dragging this one to the ground and, pulling off submissions, being the aggressive wrestler in this fight against Manfio. I think Manfio is going to keep this one standing, and I think he will be able to find a way to get to a decision. I think Olivier Aubin-Mercier will have his moments no matter what in this fight. Sure, I think he will, be successful in some of his takedown attempts, but I think Manfio is still going to be able to do enough to pick up the victory. So that's why I like Manfio to win this fight. It'll get him 7 points. It will clinch a playoff spot. He will be in no matter what. He'll, for the time being, he'll slide him into first place, of course, because Anthony Pettis is not fighting until the week after. But yeah, we're going to give the victory to Manfio, getting 7 points, and unfortunately for Olivier Aubin-Mercier, it likely does it for his season. Probably can't advance the playoffs unless an injury or someone has to pull out of a fight. So we will finalize now our light heavyweight playoffs with the final light heavyweight fights, the reigning champion and Antonio Carlos Jr. taking on Bruce Souto. Antonio Carlos Jr. is not losing. It's not happening. This guy is levels, and he's so much better than the rest of these light heavyweights. It's just a fact. I mean, again, I give maybe Josh Silveira a shot against him just because I think stylistically it'd be interesting, and maybe Omari Akhmedov, but everyone else, I just feel like Antonio Carlos Jr. is going to be able to bully on the ground. He's got a better jiu-jitsu game than all these guys. And for his opponent this time around, it's going to be Bruce Souto, a guy who lost his first fight to Rob Wilkinson. Wilkinson knocked him out in the 2nd round. He got into Souto to the PFL by winning by a flying knee knockout over Travis Davis on the Challenger Series. Good win for him no matter what. Sure, it's coming off an LFA victory over Christian Torres, who I think the same Christian Torres who beat Moroznikov? Yeah, he did. Or Oscar Morozanov back in Titan FC in 2019, and he lost to Chidi Njokawani, did Torres. But yeah, Soto's not a bad guy, don't get me wrong. He's better than Antonio Carlos Jr.'s first opponent in this PFL season, which was Delon Monte. Still, though, I mean, Antonio Carlos Jr., again, he should not have been cut from the UFC. I know he lost 3 straight fights to Heinich, Hall, and Tavares, but those are some good guys, and he's been pretty unstoppable since he's gotten into the PFL. So I'm taking Shoeface to win this one. I don't think he's going to have much trouble with Soto. I think he's going to come in there. He'll pick up the submission in the first round. He's going to take Soto down immediately, and he'll find a submission. So it'll give Antonio Carlos Jr. 12 points. He will be the first seed in the playoffs, so he's in. Okay, Omar Akhmedov, I'm just talking this out while I'm doing it. Omar Akhmedov's going to be the 3 seed because he's going to have 9 points with his knockout finish in his first fight, and then he's going to get the decision win this time around. So he's going to have 9 points. Rob Wilkinson's going to have 11 because we're saying he's going to get a second round knockout. So we've got Wilkinson and Akhmedov in the playoffs. It's just a matter of who the 4 seed's going to be because you're going to have a 3-way tie. I'm not completely sure how the PFL does this, I'll be honest with you. It'll be a 3-way tie between Josh Silveira, Josh Silveira, Corey Hendricks, and Emiliano Sordi to decide who is going to be taking on Antonio Carlos Jr. in the next round. I'm not completely sure how they do that. I'll be honest with you, because honestly, this is the first year I'm like really watching PFL. I watched some last year, but I wasn't really following it that closely. Like I watched each fight, but I didn't I don't know how the tiebreaker works. It's that simple. I don't know how the tiebreaker works. So I don't know. I mean, I like to see Josh Silveira versus Antonio Carlos Jr. because I think that's a real tough fight for Carlos Jr. But knowing the PFL, they'll probably find a way to put Emiliano Sordi in that spot, and Carlos Jr. will probably just beat him just like he did in the playoffs last year. Anyways, though, Carlos Jr. is going to be matched up with either Sordi, Hendricks, or Silveira the way I see it. But then we're also going to have Wilkinson and Akhmedov in the first round of the playoffs as well. So that'll be the other semifinal. Anyways, though, Antonio Carlos Jr. is going to run straight through Soto in this one. I think he's going to go in there, pick up a first round submission, and secure the 1 seed in the playoffs. So the PFL knows what they're doing. They know why they're putting this fight last because it's likely winner or go home in the main event. Clay Collier versus Alex Martinez. The winner of this fight is in the playoffs. The loser is likely out of it because both these guys won by decision their first time around. So we got Collier and Martinez. It's a good fight, man. I mean, Clay Collier's really come into his own so far after, joining the PFL. He was he's a pro boxer and he's still doing some pro boxing fights as well, but he comes in the PFL season last year. He beats Anthony Pettis, wins his second fight of the PFL regular season as well, then runs into Manfio, which again, did he win that fight? I thought he didn't get the scorecards. Starts off the PFL 2022 season by beating Jeremy Stephens in their first fight. It was a tremendous fight, really good fight that Collier does win, and now he's going to be taking on Alex Martinez. Collier, of course, the boxing. He's really solid boxer. He's got really good hands. For Martinez, he fought Stevie Ray in his first fight. It was one of the first fights, I believe, of the main card, if I'm not mistaken. It was on the prelims, actually. But yeah, Martinez wins it by unanimous decision. He's a solid fighter. I mean, he fought in the PFL season last year. He went 1-2, losing it to, or he actually split against Jaguar Paw, and then he lost to Natan Schulte in his second fight by split decision. Then he ran into, again, Jaguar Paw in the playoffs, and he lost by unanimous decision. For Martinez, I mean, this is a guy who can just mix it up. He can, he can strike, he can grapple. I think he's probably going to go to the grappling here in this fight with Collier, even though Clay Collier's got some pretty good, defensive wrestling. The guy is pretty solid over there. I think Collier should be able to win. I think all around he's better than Alex Martinez and keep the fight standing, and I think he will outbox Alex Martinez for 15 minutes, and I think Clay Collier is going to pick up the win by unanimous decision, advancing to the playoffs as well. So we're going to go back to our brackets now, or to our standings. So Anthony Pettis basically is already locked in a playoff spot. He is in with his first, win, he's going to have 6 points. So we will have currently the 1 seed will be Manfio with 7 points. He'll be currently right now the 1 seed. Pettis will be the 2 seed right now with 6 points, and with the opportunity to jump up to 1. Collier will be the 3 with 6 points. And then Jeremy Stephens will be, actually, there's going to be a tie. Yeah, it'll be Pettis, Collier, and Stephens will all be tied for the 2, 3, 4 with 6 points. Not entirely sure how they're going to match that one up. I'd assume I'm expecting Pettis to win, and if Pettis wins by any form, decision, submission, knockout anyway, Pettis will be the 1 seed with the victory no matter what over a guy in Stevie Ray who he should beat. So we're just going to kind of pencil in Pettis as the 1 seed, and that'll make Manfio the 2 seed with the 7 points, and I assume it would make Clay Collier the 3 seed because him and Stephens will both have the same amount of points, but Collier has a better record, and he beat Jeremy Stephens as well in this season, so Collier to be the 3 seed, Stephens would be the 4. So we're looking at Anthony Pettis versus Jeremy Stephens to former UFC fighters in their fight, and then you got a rematch of the champion or the semifinal fight last year in Manfio and Clay Colliard. You can set up for a lot of rematches there. Colliard's fought both Pettis and Stevens for Manfio, of course, the reigning champion who beat Colliard last year in his route to winning the world championship. So a lot of intriguing matchups here at 155. But again, the way I break it down, I think this is really setting up for a Jeremy Stephens playoff appearance here, as long as he can take advantage of his opponent in Miles Price, who, let's be honest, is not all that. So that's what we got. But in this fight, I got Clay Colliard beating Alex Martinez by decision, advancing to the playoffs, and likely being the number 3 seed at lightweight. So folks, thank y'all for watching our week number 4 PFL preview and predictions. Dude, honestly, I like the PFL format. I like all these, clinching scenarios and all that of what's going to happen for the playoffs later this year. And yeah, we're going to be back next week breaking down a fight card that does feature Anthony Showtime Pettis. He is the only lightweight fight on the card next week against Stevie Ray. He's already clinched the playoff spot pretty much. But if he picks up the victory, he will be the number 1 seed. And you got the heavyweights next week as well. In the main event, you got Bruno Capoloza taking on Matus Scheffel, excuse me. And you got the featherweights in there as well. So Brendan Loughnan's over there. You got Lance the Party Palmer, who lost his first fight. But Bubba Jenkins looking to secure a playoff spot. All those guys. So that's next week with the featherweights and the heavyweights alongside Showtime Pettis. Be on the lookout for that video coming up next week, alongside Bellator and the UFC as well next week. So folks, make sure that subscribe button down below if you did enjoy the video. Be sure to leave a like if you did enjoy as well. Thank you for watching. And Mamba forever.